Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Coding and Philosophy episode. I'm Juho.
And I am Tiang.
Yes. And this episode is about pragmatism, aka being practical. I didn't learn that word till recently. A teacher told me, he was constantly using the word you have to have a pragmatic approach. You need to be pragmatic, or you're pragmatic. I was like, what does that mean?
You're practical.
Yeah, practical. I was like, okay, now it makes sense.
Different phrase.
Yeah, so...
But that doesn't make it practical, because if using the word pragmatic causes confusion to some people, why doesn't he use the word practical?
That's it. That's
the word practical is more practical than the word pragmatic.
Agreed. But pragmatic is it's a fancier word.
It doesn't make it more practical.
It doesn't, yeah. But yeah, I think if you think about for example, philosophies that a person could have, there are certain ones. Like you can be relativist, I don't know the term, but basically when you speak about the truth, you can say, or like moral relativism. That's a word I've heard.
Moral relativism.
Yeah, so if you since morality is subjective, you can't have true good or nothing is good or bad inherently. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's at least my interpretation. Or then you can have something like Stoicism, which I think it's a practical way of approaching life, or it's a practical philosophy to approach life, right?
I think it's practical in a sense that people can use it and take benefit from it. Is that what you mean by being practical?
Yeah, well, okay, so an example which popped into my head is how, let's take something like the traditional power structure, or like the hierarchy which exists in nature, you know, the dominance hierarchy, right?
The dominant hierarchy.
Yeah, so it exists in, across species, and some humans may have a philosophy that they say, well, it's a social construct that we have made up, but it doesn't actually exist in, that it's
social construct.
Yeah. So that's a very, if you have that philosophy, it's gonna be, it's gonna do you bad to have that kind of, it's like, if you have that philosophy, then you're gonna approach, you're not gonna be striving to advance in this, I think the dominance hierarchy, or the, what is it called? The dominance hierarchy, the power structure, whatever you wanna call it. It's basically that you have the animals, like the way animals operate. They go about in the wild, and they try to gather more resources from them and less resources for the other people,
Other people?
Or other animals. So my point is this. If you don't believe in that, then you're not gonna, first of all, play the game.
You play other game.
Yeah. What do you mean, other game?
Yeah, there are other games to play apart from that game. If they don't believe in the practicality of the power structure of the dominance hierarchy, they will create themselves other games that they perceive as more valuable, or makes more sense for them, or they agree with that game.
But when you say that makes more sense for them, it might make more sense, but it doesn't practically make more sense, because if you, let's say you advance in the power hierarchy that we have, and then you fall into some ill times, you're going to be way more prepared to face those bad times now that you are in a certain level in the power, hierarchy. You know what I mean? You have more land, you have more resources. See? So I think going about, basically just if you have a practical philosophy, or how would I put this? Believing in or wanting to play the game and believing in the necessity of having the power structure is more practical than not going about your life, not believing in it and not playing the game, and even wanting to destroy the game because you go that this is just a made up social construct.
Mm-hmm. How do you persuade them that the power structure is more practical than whatever belief they are having?
Well, I don't know if they can be persuaded because, and here's what I think. If you acknowledge that this power structure exists, that means you also have to acknowledge or like figure out where do I, exist in this power structure. And that might be a bad time if you're low, so you would want to hide that, or say that doesn't exist because you don't want to acknowledge that you're worse off than others. You know what I mean?
But is it practical for you if you pretend that even though you are somewhat middle in the hierarchy, is it practical for you to already imagine that you are somewhere high in the middle hierarchy and act as if, and then try to reverse engineering the situation to manifest it?
I don't think that's a good play because
fake it till you make it.
But the thing is this, the thing with that is that you always want to be aware of how you perceive yourself and how other people perceive you. So basically you aren't what you think you are a combination of how others see you and how you see yourself. So let's say that I believe that I'm the greatest coder of all time, even though my other people, or the reality is different. And I go into a job interview and they ask me how much do I want to get paid, and I'm gonna say some ridiculous number. They're gonna say no, I don't, and they're gonna throw me out, and I'm gonna leave that situation disappointed because the reality and my perception of myself and their reality or other people's perception of me, aka reality, don't match. So you wanna understand them both, and they should be as closely aligned as they can.
Well, if you are disappointed, probably you are not believing yourself much enough.
Well, there is
just kidding.
This believing yourself, and there's also the reality, right?
Yeah.
So I think
that reality can be molded based on each person's perceptions.
What do you mean?
Yeah, because there's a person can understand and view the reality with different lens. That's what I mean.
Yeah, but let's say the most you can see it like you can have different realities or different philosophies, right?
Yeah.
But following some philosophy is more useful than following some other philosophy, or more like practically useful, more pragmatic, right? And one thing also about being pragmatic, even though there is a value in following your values or living to your values, I told the story of a writer called Voltaire, who was a French guy living in the UK during the height of, this was 1700s, during the height of like anti-French sentiment. Everyone hated the French. And he encountered this group of people who, started mocking him and wanted to hang him. And he basically said like, oh, hey, look, he said to the crowd, is it not enough that I'm born as a Frenchman? And instead of an Englishman, do you have to hang me as well? And the crowd cheered and they went away. So he chose the pragmatic approach.
Yeah.
He threw away his values, or, well, not threw away, but just in that situation, he could have said, I'll stand up for Frenchmen and got hanged, but that's not the pragmatic way to handle that situation, So you should be driven by values, but not to a point, right? You don't want them to take over you don't want them to cloud your judgment. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And there's, I've been reading talking about moral relativism, and I've been reading the stories from the Bible or the Moses books,
Yeah.
So there was one story which was that right now I'm reading the Joshua, he's like a great war leader, and what he did is he sent his soldiers to conquer a village, and they were they suffered a humiliating loss. And then the soldiers came back, and all the people were talking like, hey, I don't know if the Joshua is the right guy for us. Like, he might be not be a good leader. And this kind of sentiment was kind of flowing around the camp. Then he said that, okay, I got an idea. So I'm going to explain how it was said in the Bible and how, like, I think what really happened. So how it was said in the Bible that after that defeat, Joshua went and talked with God and then said, hey, why did we lose the battle? I thought you were with us. What happened? And God responded, yeah, I was with you. But then one of your commanders stole this like silver plate, which was meant to be, as a sacrifice for me. That's why I made you lose, because that was stolen. So you need to give back that, or sacrifice that silver plate for me, and then also, sacrifice whoever stole it for me as well, and then I will be with you as well. And then, Joshua invited all his, chiefs to a meeting, and then he said, explain. Here's why we lost the last battle, because God is angry at one of you. So who did it? And then one of them chimed up and said, I'm sorry, I took it. I took this thing that was meant to be as a sacrifice for God. And then, Joshua burned him and along with the plate. So that's how it's explained there. My interpretation, what really happened, is that after the loss, Joshua was like, okay, who's my weakest chief? Who can I sacrifice out of these people? And then, because he needed a scapegoat, he needed a way to make people believe that it wasn't his leadership that caused them to lose. It was someone else. And because God was such everyone believed in God, like that's a good, a lie to say. See what I mean? So, yeah, and thinking back, I think if I was in the group or if I was one of the people led by Joshua, and I was in the group led by Joshua, I would be not mad. I wouldn't be mad at him doing something like that. So I was explaining about the Joshua story. So basically, if I was in Joshua's, I wouldn't be mad at Joshua doing that, because I understand that sometimes you have to be practical. Sometimes you have to be pragmatic, when you're in charge. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I can see the point.
Yeah. So that's I think the best way to lead and the best way to live, I would say, it's being pragmatic about everything. It's the equivalent of not being the main character of your story, but instead you're the narrator. And the narrator has all the power to tell the story and to tell let's put it in another way. You're the writer of the story. You aren't the main character.
If you are a weak commander in the position under the commandment of Joshua, should you be pragmatic and get the hell out of there?
Yeah. Well,
in that case, everyone being pragmatic should get the hell out of there.
No, not because if you're pragmatic and if you really believe in if you're driven by values and if everyone in that group was pragmatic.
Yeah, everyone should become their own commander.
No, they wouldn't, because they would go, I know that Joshua is a better leader than me and the best leader. In order to, the pragmatic approach is to accept that, okay, I need to be sacrificed in order for, as you know,
what do you mean by pragmatic? What do you mean by pragmatic? If being pragmatic is survivorship, then they should get the hell out of there. Survive, right? That's also being pragmatic.
Well, yeah, but
Joshua did being pragmatic. If his commandment is in doubt, his mode of survivorship will not be valid. So we want to continue that. And by pragmatic, he implement whatever it takes.
Yeah, but do you think that, like, there are some things worth dying for, I would say.
That sounds a lot like a value-driven thought. Something worth dying for, that's very martyr, value-driven.
Well, the pragmatic, okay, so if let's say your objective in life is to make as big of an impact as you possibly can, sometimes you need to die for that impact to happen. You can't choose life in that situation.
Then you are a martyr.
Huh?
Then you are a martyr, a martyrdom.
Yeah, but you want to be martyrdom, or you want to be a martyr when it counts. So you want to, like, it's...
Does Voltaire chose to become a martyrdom, or he chose to be pragmatic and survive?
Who?
Voltaire, from your story.
Well, that's the thing, is that I don't think if he had sacrificed himself, he wouldn't been a martyr, because he had, if you think about his impact, he was going to have more impact if he was, okay, let's put it this way. If Voltaire died in that situation, there would have been a kind of, it would be a good story, to tell.
Or maybe it causes a revolution of French people in the UK that completely revolutionized the way UK have to view the French. Who knows?
Yeah.
We don't know until it happened.
But if he thinks, okay, how can I have the most influence over the world? Is it to die here, become a martyr, or is it to, live on and write more books? Is that the way? So you weigh the options. Should I die here? Is that gonna cause a big enough impact? And you kind of factor that in, So,
live to fight another day, huh?
Yeah. So I do believe there is something to be said about dying for something, Or even, I am a pragmatic guy, but I do believe there are things worth dying for. So yeah, it's a delicate. Nothing is so.
How do you understand pragmatic?
Pragmatic.
How do you understand being practical?
It's looking at the situation objectively and not letting emotions cloud your judgment, and seeing seeing all the available plays and choosing the one which has the most utility. The most, and utility meaning that it has the most impact into the direction that you want the impact to go, or most impact in the place where you want the impact to go. Well, hey, I think that's all I have to say about being pragmatic.
And I don't have anything to say except my questions.
Your questions?
Yeah, I raises a lot of questions and you talk a lot.
Yeah. So I guess we're done here. Thanks for joining us for another episode, and we will see you in the next one.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.